Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next session of Meet the Members of Empower Africa. I'm excited and honored to host this podcast. My name is Shai Bernstein. I'm VP of Business Development and Partnerships at Empower Africa, and we're going to have one of these podcasts every Tuesday at 4 p.m. CAT, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Before I present our distinguished guests, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, just a bit of background on Empower Africa. Empower Africa is a business community with a mission to drive investment, trade, and job creation in Africa. We believe in trade over aid, and that business is the best way to build things and make a difference. We have three verticals in the company. The first, the Empower Africa Business Network. The second, events and trade missions. And the third, consulting and project facilitation. We love bringing people together. We believe in the huge power of synergy. And our business community is an invite-only and paid membership because we want to make sure that the people who are joining the business community are really honest people who can add tremendous value to each other. Our goal is to create connections. We want to optimize the communication and really maximize the collaboration that can be done. When we talk about the business community, we're talking about SMEs and startups, investors, banks, PEs, VCs, governments, multinational enterprises, and much more, bringing everybody to one place and seeing how we can work together and driving business in Africa. Speaking of bringing good people together, it is my honor, true honor, to invite for today a dear friend who I've met, although not too long ago, but since then we've been in touch quite a bit, met both virtually and in person, even through COVID. Sandeep, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shai. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yes, of course. Preparing for this podcast, as we were talking, we were discussing the different things that we should be talking about. You know, we have different guests coming, talking about different projects that they're working on. And I think in your case, and that's why I'd like you to, tell us a bit about yourself in that sense. At the moment, the appropriate title is Sandeep is the Director of Commercials at Jumia. Some of you may have heard of this, small and quiet company that has been, just really doing so much waves around the world, different stock exchanges and whatnot. Jumia is an incredible company, also known as the Amazon of Africa, but I'll let Sandeep explain if that is a good comparison or not. And you've just been extremely, fortunate and done such an amazing job at building and scaling, right? Being a part of building and scaling this unbelievable company. So without further ado, please share us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Shai. So before I start about myself, I just wanted to start by giving, for about Empower Africa, right? I think what you guys are doing, it's absolutely brilliant. And I think it's a right forum for like-minded people like yourself and other members of Empower Africa to believe and build a community and to have a very structured conversation around about the continent. And I think that is not something which was done in the past or not with that I am aware of. And so it's pretty amazing to see people like you taking that effort to build structure to the conversation about the continent. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Of course, coming from you.
So I'm from India. I grew up in southern part of India. I did my education there. I did my bachelor's, master's, finance and supply chain in India. And then I joined a retail company back then in 2007, I believe. Yeah, 2007 in retail, and that was like the boom of retail sector in India. So I think every new graduate was like trying to get luck in retail, because wherever you see there were malls coming up, fancy stores coming up. That was also the time when the foreign direct investment in India also opened up. So we have a lot of this fancy new brands coming up, and everybody is excited to be part of it. So I think I also jumped into the bandwagon of retail. And
Right.
then that was, so even though I grew up in south of India, the job took me to the central part of India, and I think most people know it's Bombay, the city, and that's where I was working, and it was quite interesting journey because even though India, it's one country, you have more than 25 different languages spoken. The culture is completely different. So when I ended up in Bombay, I never knew the language, the local language spoken there, because it's not even close to the languages I know. So the first struggle I had was to understand the language, to commute within the city, or to speak to people in different to get my work done in general. And then when I joined the work, the interesting part was I was part of the planning team. And the funny part was that I think in a month or two of me joining, we had a huge strike in the warehouse, which is located in quite far from the main city. And the funny part was they only spoke the local language. And then I ended up being there for a couple of months. And the good thing was I happened to pick up the language,
Right.
so that was the benefit of it. But it was also one of the most challenging times, right, when you end up in a new city in 1 month, and you are in a corner of the state, and then you're struggling to understand what these guys are talking about. So that was quite an interesting time.
Wow.
So yeah, so I was there in retail for 4 5 years in India, and then I moved to Singapore to pursue my MBA. And then I joined Dubai, and that's where I joined a startup called MiDCOM. And they're also purely Africa based entity, building. I mean, that startup was focusing mostly on retail distribution and manufacturing. So that's where I started, I would say, my career in Africa. And then 10 years since, and I've been focusing 70 80% of my time, even though I live in Dubai. I spent 70 80% of my time in Africa, traveled 22 countries across the continent.
Wow.
And so it's been quite interesting. Yeah.
How many countries you say? 23?
22 countries. Yeah. So
22.
I've been, yeah, 22 countries in Africa. So I've lived in Nigeria for a bit, Kenya, Tanzania for a couple of months, then West Africa quite a bit, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Ghana,
Wow.
Guinea, yeah, and even Congo and Chad. So I think that few countries where a lot of people don't end up in. So yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic. I could tell you that most of the people we've mentioned this in the past, right? There's such a dissonance between what people, well, most people in London, Dubai, DC, San Francisco, New York, right? What their perception on Africa is, and
Yeah.
how they view Africa. And many of them still view it as a country instead of a continent with 54 countries, right?
Yeah.
And you really, I mean, your knowledge with different countries in Africa is spectacular, right? There aren't many people, I'd say, in the world who have such a selective experience in so many different countries in Africa. It's fantastic. So when did you join Jumia?
So I joined Jumia. So I was in touch with, so Jumia when they launched in Africa. So that's when I also started my. That was back in 2012, 13, I believe. So 10 years back, close to 10 years back. And in back then so when Jumia started, I was in touch with the founders. So it's founded by two ex McKinsey consultants, Jeremy and Sasha. And I was in touch. I met them first in Kenya, and then ever since, I've always seen the company grow in multiple countries. So it started in 2012 and it was launched in Nigeria. Then we expanded in 2013 in Morocco, Kenya, Ivory Coast, and then in South Africa as well. Then the company now, if you look at it, we operate out of 11 countries in Africa. We have 4 countries
Wow.
in West, we have 4 in North. So it's quite covering almost let's say 75 to 80% of the GDP of the continent. So we are in the right places, covering the right markets as on today.
Wow. Wow. And can you tell us a bit what Jumia does?
So it's a marketplace e-commerce platform. So we quite challenge Amazon in Egypt since Souk was taken over by them. But yeah, we are listed in New York Stock Exchange. It's a pure marketplace e-commerce platform. We are supported, let's say, fund from pillars of Jumia. I would say is supported by two things. One is our proprietary logistics business, which covers the last mile delivery. So that's one of the biggest challenges in the places where we operate, right? Is to get the last mile delivery to
Last
the
mile.
end consumer. It's not easy to track people, so that's one of the most challenging aspect of it. So that's what I would say one big pillar. And the second would be our digital payment solution. It's called the Jumia Pay. It's basically like Alipay or Amazon Pay or any of those things. So these are and we have close to 30-35% of the transactions which happens on Jumia on using Jumia Pay. So it's basically a payment platform where you can pay for your paying your electricity bill, or recharging
Wow.
your phone or any of these things, or even you can use it to buy a phone or a laptop or whatever you want on Jumia or any of the other marketplace players as well.
Wow. Wow. Fantastic. And I won't, embarrass you or make you feel uncomfortable, but I do advise our listeners, if you haven't heard of Jumia, look them up, Google it, and see
For
the
sure,
growth that they've had over the past few years.
for
Um,
sure.
Really just incredible. I mean, could you share a little bit about what that's like? I mean, when you joined, how many employees approximately was, or how many clients or countries were you operating in, and then kind of where you are today?
So, like I said, initially we were operating out of three countries back in 2012, 13, and then eventually we opened up in other countries. So the idea of it was we were looking at countries where we have internet penetration. So if you look at it currently, we have in Africa it's around 520 million internet users, and we cover close to 75-80% of the internet usage. So the expansion is more linked to the internet usage in the countries where we operate. So we have we have the key countries is of course Nigeria, then Egypt in North Africa, and then we also have operations in smaller countries like I would say Uganda, to an extent Senegal. So it's not only looking at larger
Right.
countries focusing on it. The idea is to make sure we use I mean the idea is to make sure we use internet to connect sellers to the consumers, right? And that's what we are leveraging, and that's what we've been focusing on for the last 8 years, 9 years of us being in operation.
Wow, wow. Because I'm just thinking also kind of internally from an organizational perspective, right? Scale is always challenging.
Yeah,
It's challenging. Of course, you have the commercial perspective. In other words, how am I growing now my client base, my revenue, right?
yeah,
Strategic partnerships. But then there's also just the element of the company itself and the employees. And how do I hire, the right expertise? And specifically, I may need, to hire in different countries. So I need to now go
yeah.
into a new country, right? Find the right people to hire. How did you find that?
So thankfully for us, so if you look at it, okay, so if you were to ask me this question back in 2012 or 13, so I remember the first time I took a flight to Ivory Coast. I don't speak French. I landed there to set up a company there. And then when I landed there, the first question I asked is that, okay, to start is you may have a beautiful plan, but to execute it, you need manpower, right? You need local talents who are the experts of it.
Right.
So it's still a very conventional way of going and meeting people. So I ended up going into the markets to identify who are the people who are currently managing the distribution, or who are the people who have the right skill set. Then it's a painstaking job, honestly, of interviewing probably 50, 60, 100 people, and looking and identifying the right talent. But I would say see, there are two things into it. So if you were somebody who is coming into Africa with a preconceived notion that, okay, I don't know, in US or in Dubai, you have a certain quality of people you are expecting, and then you are trying to replicate the same expectation in the countries, I don't think that's the right approach, because the training and the exposure which the continent has got as of now is limited. So there are constraints with the right people, and right to identify probably the exact fit for the role. But the advantages, they are the most enterprising set of young population you have in the countries, in majority of the countries. So if you are looking to train, if you are looking to put in systems process, I think that will be the success of it. Because if it, and that's what I've seen in the last 10 years of me being associated with Africa, or any part of it, right? In any of the 10, 11, 15 countries I've been in, I've always noticed that if you invest time into to train, to put in the right process and systems, there are enough and more people who can adapt and make sure that the business grows. So it's all about that.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Always the execution is the hardest part, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, wow, amazing. And so what is your current position? I remember we talked a little bit before, and you mentioned that it's a little bit complex because you're involved with some different departments. Could you share a little bit about that?
So I manage the strategic partnerships for brands. So if you look at it, in Jumia now is listed in New York Stock Exchange. We have large sellers of the local sellers who are there on Jumia. What we are looking to explore now is to have strategic partnership with key brands. So let's say Samsung or Xiaomi or HP, Intel, or any of these big brands. Or so I'm part of the team who manages the strategic partnership of let's say large corporates. So if I have to look at it, we have, of the Fortune 500 company, we have close to 50% of them now in partnership with Jumia in one country or in multiple countries. So we have, yeah. So that's what we've been focusing on in the last 2.5 years. So we built this concept called Jumia Mall, the official store. So initially, when we started the site, it was more a marketplace platform. So any seller was able to sell. So I, as a seller, is selling similar products as you, Shai, but we are only competing against each other with price. There was never a dedicated space for the official sellers. So when we had an official seller, when I say official seller, the brand coming on to the platform, always the challenge we had was to explain to the brand, you are also competing with the seller who may have probably a better price because of whatever reason. And that was never something that was something which we always wanted to differentiate the partnership with the brand. So in the last couple of years, we have built something called as the Jumia Mall, or the official stores, we call it. And that's where you have dedicated space for these brands. So and that's what I manage for Jumia.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Um, so, I mean, I don't know, can you share a little bit about, the vision or where your next steps of Jumia is going? Or
So very, I mean, so it's a very complicated, it's not an easy way to I would say, to put in the next steps. But for us, the next step from a Jumia perspective, we are looking to grow the profitable usage of Jumia. So that means we want to make Jumia profitable, and that's where we are focusing on. Of course, with that, the growth. But from specific to from a commercial point of view, we are all expanding we are linking sellers from other countries into exploring Africa. So what it means is that we have something called as cross-border, which is Jumia. So we have sellers we have set up an office in China where we are linking up the big Chinese sellers to sell into Africa. And we are replicating something similar in Dubai as well. So what it means is that the traders or the sellers in Dubai who wants to expand the market into Africa, into the 11 countries where Jumia is, they get an opportunity to partner with Jumia and then sell the products in these markets where we operate. So that's probably one of the key things which we will be focusing on in the next let's say 2 years at least to build that up.
Fantastic. Wow. Well, good luck with that. I'm sure you guys will succeed. It's great. That's great. Before we move to a close, is there anything else you'd like to mention? Any other projects or something that you'd like to bring up?
Not really, but I mean, if I want to look at, leveraging Empower Africa, do you want to, I mean, the kind of people do you want me to look at to which I want to connect in with Empower Africa? Is that something you want me to explain now?
Yeah, 100%. Who would you like to, meet? Who are you looking for? Who can add value to you in the Empower Africa business community?
So I was thinking, I mean, when you mentioned this question sometime back, and I was just thinking on that, and I think the best people or companies who I personally would want to connect with would be the people in the digital or retail distribution space. Right. In general, the people who are interested to leverage Jumia and to Jumia to expand their existing business or to launch their new business, because that's something, and that's the concept which I was also referring earlier, the one which we are setting up in Dubai as cross-border, and similarly in China where we have in Shenzhen, we have the cross-border mechanism. It's always to make sure that we are giving opportunities for sellers who are in any part of the world who wants to expand their distribution presence in Africa, or connect their or expand their existing business in Africa into multiple countries. So, and I think it will be very interesting to meet people who are looking to explore that.
Fantastic, wonderful. Okay, so as you know, we like to end by sharing a specific quote or saying that our guest resonates with or that inspires him or her. So please, love to hear a saying or a quote from you, Sandeep.
So it's a very interesting question, and I when I think about it, and when the only quote which rings my bell is the one which I heard from one of the interaction with a seller in northern part of Nigeria, a place called Abuja, and he said, it's not about making the right choice, it's about making a choice and making it right. So, and I think it's quite, and it's stuck to me, because when I look at it, me personally, as 10 years back, I used to, when I initially started working for Africa in any of the roles I had in the past, even it's setting up a factory in Uganda, or even Jumia, or any of the roles which I had. Initial part of it, I used to look at a lot of data to try and replicate what worked well in let's say US or any part of Europe or any of those advanced countries, to look at the best practices and let's try and replicate it. And then I was always trying to make the right decision and not and it ended up sometimes not making any decision. Then I realized there is nothing called as a right decision, right? When I look at the choices I've made, I think it's the outcome of those choices is probably because of it's not because of the initial choice. It's probably because of the effort which me or anybody in my team or anybody I've worked with has put in to make it right. So I agree to that. The small seller in Abuja who gave me this wonderful quote, and till date I still remember that.
Wow. Fantastic. That's great. That's actually that's a great quote. And if I might add, it actually resonates with me, not just from, I guess, again, general decision making in life, but it also resonates while you were saying it. It resonates with me with also a decision of getting married. I
Yeah.
have a good friend who is single, and we just had a very long conversation. And he's a great guy, and he's meeting different women, and dating and in relationships. And we had this whole conversation about how do I know, and making the right decision. And there was something that I said to him that was along the lines of that, in the sense like, look, you're never really going to know. There's like a limit to how much you can check, right? You don't have all the different options set for you. um, and at the end of the day, I think it's a matter of a choice. And so it just resonated with me what you said, because it's a matter of, I'm making this choice, and then it's more a matter of how I'm making it right, and how I make this is the choice that I'm doing, right? That this is the path that I'm taking, and then how do I make the most out of that, and how do I make that work? So just a thought from a relationship.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I think it when I think about it, it applies to everything in life, right? In general, and especially in if you are an entrepreneur, or if you are trying to set up a business in a new country, or in a new city, or anything in general. When I look at it, I think the success of some of the entrepreneurs who have come across in my life, and the sellers and the traders in any of the countries I've been to, it's because they make the decision, and they stick to it, and they make it happen, right? And it's not about thinking for. I mean, it's good to have some kind of structure to the thought, but it's always about making a decision, right or wrong, a decision, and sticking to it. So I think what you said is absolutely right.
100%, 100%. Wow. Sandeep, thank you very much. Always a pleasure, of course, to talk to you. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, there are a number of things that you mentioned that I want to, I'll take offline with you, because I have some thoughts and ideas. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Stay safe and healthy, man, and stay cool from Dubai, right? Hope the AC.
Yeah. The hope the AC, the AC is now at 24. I think it's going to come down to 20 soon. Yeah, but thanks a lot, Shai. Thanks. It's
Sure.
amazing. I mean, like I said, it's always good to connect with like-minded people who wants to build Africa, and I'm happy to help and support in any way I can.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, Shai. Have a good day.
Bye.